Now, is my role to answer them as
Yes.
if I were a candidate?
No,
Or-
right now I'd like you to just answer them, given your current position as a school
Okay.
board. All right. Where is the distinction between an educator and a board member, and how do you find yourself within this distinction?
Okay. The distinction between a board member and an educator is that on the board, we really aren't involved in the actual education of children. What we do is we provide governance of the district. We provide representation for the schools that we've been elected to represent. Our role is to set policy. Our role is to provide supervision of the superintendent. We have a fiscal responsibility to ensure that the school district is funded appropriately and that the budget is allocated in the best and most fair way to ensure that education occurs. The educator takes all that guidance, takes all that support, and implements the education based on what we as board members have been able to provide in support of education.
All right. As a representative of the EPISD student population, what do you feel is your connection to student bodies throughout the district, and what do you feel, and what do you do to enhance this connection?
Okay. Well, I'm a representative of District 2, which is the Burgess and Jefferson feeder patterns. My connection, well, I'm a Burgess alum, so I'm representing the school that I went to school at. My daughter also went to that school, and that she grew up through the entire feeder pattern. And so I feel that I'm highly connected to the Burgess feeder pattern just because it's my alma mater. The Jefferson feeder pattern is, it's not my natural feeder pattern, it's by district, I'm there. My belief, though, is I think that's a very important school in this community because that is the center of the medical education in our community, Silva. And I have a goal of expanding those medical offerings out at Jefferson to include the main Jefferson campus where we can provide some occupational magnet programs for kids who may not want to go into a Silva environment where they're studying for a professional. They may not have in their minds to go to medical school or nursing school, but they may want to be able to be a billing and coding person or medical transcription or the laser technology, the medical laser technology that they have out there. So I believe that school and that feeder pattern is highly important, primarily because we're in SIMS. With the district, I go back, I'm a product of EPISD. I'm proud of the district as a whole. It, in my opinion, represents the entire community when it comes to school. EPISD is the largest school district within our community, and it is the one I think that gets the most focus from just because we carry the name El Paso.
We've come to understand that many reasons why people feel less than inclined to apply for this position is due to their lack of time or their profession. What has motivated you to sacrifice your time in applying?
Well, I got to say, I love what I'm doing, and but it is a sacrifice because it causes me to be extremely busy. My work, I have a 40 to 50-hour work week regularly. I'm the executive director of an organization in this community. However, my second career, shall I say, my first career I was a police officer and did 21 years as a police officer. Second career, though, I've been working with children. And so I was prior to where I'm at now, I was executive director at the Child Crisis Center of El Paso. And I understand clearly when I see what I saw at Child Crisis Center, how education, if only the parents of those children that I see had education, because so many of them, the parents don't or didn't fulfill their education, and the result of which was maltreatment of children as a part of the result of that, right? So I certainly understand how education is very important for members of our community when they go into the adult life. It affects every aspect of their life. Today, I'm the executive director of the Paso del Norte Children's Development Center, where we work with children who have special needs. And really the same applies there because what we have is a lot of parents who just don't understand, don't know what is happening with their children, and many of whom, because of lack of education, are having a very difficult time grasping the reality of having a child with the special needs. So I truly understand that education is key in our community. I think we have to have the best possible education that we can provide to all students who attend EPISD. And that's my motivation. I want to be able to make a difference so that, you know, maybe one day we won't have so much maltreatment. We won't have, or we'll have parents who can better work with their children who may have disabilities. We'll have income levels rise where they can afford to take care of their children when they have that, because that's where we exist. We take care of children. Parents can't afford to take care of their children. I'm homegrown in El Paso. I've never lived in another place. And so this town is my town, and I believe 100% that this is a great community, but for it to continue to be great, to get better, education is key.
What is your definition of an engaging and challenging learning environment?
I'm sorry, now?
What is your definition of an engaging and challenging learning environment?
It's the last part that I didn't hear.
Oh, sorry. What is your definition of an engaging and challenging learning environment?
Engaging and challenging learning environment. Well, I believe in active learning. I believe that the day of kids sitting in rows in a classroom and listening to lecture, that's a thing of the past. I mean, obviously, I think there's going to be times that has to exist. But what I want to see is I want to see students engaged in their own education. I want to see them being able to discover on their own with a teacher who becomes more of a facilitator that guides and models the students to help them explore and learn, because when that occurs, I think what's happening is the kids are exploring and learning the things that are of interest to them. And their interest then is piqued as a result of being able to learn on their schedule, okay, according to their interests. And what you have is a teacher then who guides them and mentors them through the process and helps them understand what it is that they're learning and puts it all together into a curriculum, into a concept that results with education of the child.
And how do you use your definition to fulfill the goals set by the current school board?
To fulfill a goal set by?
The current school board.
By the current school board. Well, we have some very good goals, and active learning is one of them. And ultimately, we believe that by implementing the active learning concepts, the dual language that we're implementing, which is real important, also early college and dual credit programs, I think all of that is going to result with a student that's going to be challenged more, but who's going to succeed more than following the past traditional education that we're all used to. And then my hope is, because they're engaged in education and the student wants to learn, that they'll want to continue learning beyond the high school and continue into higher education, or at the least vocational technical education, so that, because these are kids that have throughout their education career have learned to enjoy learning, and they want to keep learning and understand that education is key for them to be able to succeed in the world.
What unique qualities or skills do you think you bring to the board?
Number one, for me, I'm a product of the district. I grew up through it. My child went through the district on Burgess High School that I represent. Go back, lifelong El Paso, and I see so much future in El Paso. I see so much happening. One thing that bothers me a lot, though, is that we see so many kids, when they reach the point of wanting to go to college, they leave El Paso and they don't come back. And while I'm all for pursuing the best possible education, we need to find a way to keep our kids here professionally. Go to Notre Dame, go to these great colleges, but come back and take that education that you took from the university and bring it back to El Paso and make El Paso the great place, because I think El Paso is just a wonderful place to raise a family. It's a great place to live.
All right. What do you believe you still need to build upon?
Well, we're implementing a lot of change. And so at this stage of the game, I think we need to start implementing some of the change, some of the innovations that we're bringing forth. And we need to evaluate as a board and as an administrative team the success of the implementation that we've gone out. Some of them very costly. the computers that you all have. Okay, that's a very costly implementation. We need to evaluate to make sure that the computer that you have, that you're able to find your books on, is an improvement over having books in backpacks that you carry around all day, that it is resulting in improved education, better outcomes than if we were to follow the traditional path of education. But right now, we're in the stage of implementation. We're rolling it out. The dual language that I referred to a little bit earlier, I think we're at the 4th grade right now. I'm really interested to see how that pays out when every grade level has dual language available to the students, where they can learn in 2 languages and come out of school bilingual, whether it be English, Spanish, English, Mandarin, Chinese, or other language. All of the indications are that those students really have great outcomes, and I'm really wanting to see that outcome. But we're in the middle of that implementation. It's still being rolled out. So I believe that today, the past 2 years, since the new board came into play, we've done a great job of innovating and bringing change into the classroom. Now it's time for us to step back and evaluate that implementation and start applying the tweaks, whatever we need to do to make sure that what we're implementing is going to work. And the way we're going to see that is by the improved outcomes, i.e. improved graduation rates, improved college entry, where we have fewer kids having to take remedial courses in college, and college graduation rates. I think right now we're at about 16%. El Paso State is about 22-24%. So our goal then is to increase beyond the state level, and the graduation rates from college, okay? The 4 or 5 year graduation rate versus what we see today.
What do you consider to be the most important aspect of education, and why do you believe this?
The most important aspect of education. It's a good question. And that's a tough one for even me, being a board member, to answer. There's so many variables in education. One of the things that is occurring today that we as a district need to be fully aware of, and it is the proliferation of charter schools. Charter schools are marketing and coming out to people and saying they can do a better job than public schools can. And I don't believe that's the case. I never have. So the way we're going to be able to perform better than charter schools and get beyond the image that they have created of independent school districts is going to be to continue to offer choice within the district. And I think EPISD is doing a wonderful job with the expansion of some of our magnet programs. One big change versus when I went to high school, for example, is when I went to high school, you went to the high school that you lived in and you got the education from that school. There was no policy that allowed you to go and apply to another school, even if it were better, right? Today, that's not the case. Today, you as a student can pick where you want to go. You can pick the education that you want to follow, that you want to pursue. So if you do have a desire to be a nurse, a doctor, now you have 2 options. You have the Silva Magnet program and you have the program up to Franklin. If dual credit is your thing, you have the early college programs and you have IB. You have the business magnet out at Bowie High School, you have law enforcement magnet out at Austin, and then you have New Tech. And so the options exist within the ISD, and I think that's what we need to continue to explore. What kind of options and choices that can we bring into the district for students to be able to choose upon? Because it's not just picking your community high school anymore, it's really picking a career path. And you can pick that school. And if we're successful in that, and I think we will be, then we can mediate the issues that charters bring. And that's, you know, at a board level important, because charter schools take away our students, and with that student, they take away funding. And it makes it harder, and there lies the difficulty, because a charter school, it takes, for every student that goes, it takes the ADA, which is the daily rate that a district gets, right? And so we lose that money. With less money, it makes it much more difficult for us to be able to compete against the charter school. So innovations are important. We need to continue to be on the track of expanding opportunities for children, ensure that we always have the best possible education that we offer to the students, so that when charters come, and they're coming, the choice should be clear that the independent school district is where the kids need to be.
Other than policy-related ideas, what makes you believe you are an adequate leader and representative for your district?
For me personally, number one, I think I'm a leader in the community. Okay, I've got a lot of experience working on various boards. Just my work that I've done, working in a nonprofit environment where I'm working with children, I have chosen to, to be a leader. It's not natural, right? You have to dedicate yourself to what it is you're doing, and you got to strive to become that leader, and I have, and I think I've been successful in that. So when it comes to children, when people talk about the needs of children, it's not uncommon that my name comes up, because that's the world I work in. Moreover, I've dedicated my career to public service. So going back beyond children, well, I was a police officer. And so as a police officer, the public service I provided was providing security and safety for this community. For a short period of time, I worked at the Housing Authority of the City of El Paso in a leadership role there. And so I was responsible for putting the roofs over the heads of people who couldn't afford rents. And then my latter part, the Child Crisis Center and Paso del Norte, the Children's Development Center, I'm working directly with children to improve their outcomes, to help them from environments that they had no choice to be in, but they are.
How do you leverage your personal district's interest with cohesiveness of the entire board?
It's a good question, because sometimes it's not easy to do. But the truth is, even though we're elected by our districts, the reality is we represent the district as a whole. And so I think it's important that when it comes to some of these big decisions, we have to look beyond our own area that we were elected from sometimes, because if it benefits the entire district, then it's going to benefit the districts that we're representing. And so for me personally, rarely do I step up and say, you know what, it's not good for the Burgess pattern, it's not good for the Jefferson feeder pattern, and therefore I'm not going to support it. In fact, I supported the Franklin magnet, which really was the concerning thing, was it going to compete with Silva? And but I recognize that we're a big school district and there's distance between the two schools, and so offering a medical opportunity out here in the west side is not a bad idea. And for those kids who, again, we go back, for those kids who want to go to the Silva environment, which means that you have to qualify to get into that school, that opportunity exists. For those who may not want that kind of rigor to get in, well, the opportunity exists up in Franklin. And so it's a benefit for the entire district. And in the end, it's often said to me, when you raise the sea level, all boats rise. And so we have to keep that in mind. In the end, I have an interest in supporting my district, and I will, and really what that boils down to is I get a lot of calls from my district. I get a lot of people calling me, asking me complaints, whatever it may be, and those are my issues to resolve within the district. But when it comes to board decisions, 90% of the time those board decisions are district-wide decisions that affect everybody within the district, and I think that's what it should be.
All right, those are all the questions that we have for you
They're
today.
good questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming out today and helping us go
Okay.
through the process.
Appreciate it.
Not a problem. So you guys ready for tomorrow?